everyone. I am just gonna anticipate this question because I know if I ask a Q&A, you probably ask this question or something similar to this. So I think I'll just talk about this now, and it's pretty much how or at least, okay, I'd say why I read as many books as I do. Maybe some background. I've always been a reader, but of course, there are things in your life that can really throw you off. I did used to work in a bookstore. I was a bookseller and a barista. I did see a lot of books that I wanted to read, and I just, with school, with work, with my living situation, it was just not possible to actually get to all the books that I wanted to read. I wasn't able to read all the books that I wanted to read. Like with school especially, yeah, I mean, like, I had to pick my battles. But still, my reading list kind of still grew. Of course, another big milestone in my life, I graduated, I went on job interviews, I got a job, I moved to a completely different part of the country than I have ever lived. I moved to a city that I knew absolutely zero people. I was getting used to a new job, and pretty much settling in to life. Personally, for me, it takes me a while to settle in, and I don't want to do much when I'm just settling and getting used to a routine and trying to figure out a routine. I just needed time, and I just really didn't have the mental stamina to read books at that time. But it's still something that I miss. I brought a few books with me from my home. I didn't bring all the books with me, but still I had books, but I still wasn't in the mood to read them. And I think maybe due to the fact that I had worked in retail with books, I kind of also didn't really feel like shopping or setting foot in another bookstore, especially if it's like still the same big company that I had worked for before. The novelty of book shopping and physically going into a bookstore really had worn off for me, and I didn't really feel like shopping for books. And also, I didn't really feel like shopping in general. I didn't feel like spending any money, so I didn't buy books. I haven't bought books for a long time. And then finally I got my library card. I have a library card, of course, in where I lived before, but I needed to get a new one, and I finally got my library card. And I did start checking out books, not as many as you see me checking out now, but I started reading a little bit more the more I became settled. And so I think I really started reading a lot when I think it started really a lot in February, and I just noticed I read a lot, and I think it's just naturally I just started reading a lot more. And Goodreads really helped with that, in the sense that I finally could have a solid TBR list, and I could see the books that I put in what order, and I really wanted to read it first in, first out, so that I wouldn't forget about books. One thing that I realized that I had to get over was the idea that I need to be in a mood to read a particular book. And I think that's one thing that stops a lot of people from reading books that they did want to read, but they just don't feel like in the mood to read it. And I sometimes think that's a bit, I don't know, I think it's a little bit of bullshit. I don't think that people are kidding themselves, but to hold yourself to the standard that you have to be in the mood to read a book before you read it and know what it's like and know what the mood is going to invoke in you, it seems kind of counterintuitive. I don't know how I'm going to feel when I start reading this book until I start reading it. I can't anticipate whether or not I'll be in the mood to read this unless I've read it. It's a catch-22. A lot of the times I get in the mood of really enjoying and reading the book after I start reading it, because I can't know what it's going to be like. And so I just decided, you know what, it's on my list. I'll just go down and make sure I don't forget books that I first put on the list, so that's why I do first in, first out. And I just like, you know what, the first on the list, I'm going to read you first. And then I will experience that book. Another thing about the books that I read is that I'm looking for books to add to my collection. I guess I might be unusual in the fact that I don't buy books to add to my collection to inflate my collection's potential. I don't really do blind buys. I look for books that I want to keep in my collection that are a reflection of what I enjoy, what I think is good, what I think is entertaining, what I think is informative, what I think is rich, meaningful, poignant, insightful. I feel like I have to know what it's about and like before I add it to my collection. And yeah, I do have a bunch of books that I haven't read that my parents have currently in boxes that I haven't read, and I own them. I know I need to read those books, and some of the library books that I check out are books that I own I just don't have access to, and I am trying to make an effort into making sure that going through my collection and making sure, do I really want to keep this in my collection? Do I feel like this really represents me, what I enjoy, and what I think is really good? Or is this just taking up space? I don't want to look at books as a trophy. I don't think books are trophies. I think books are something to be valued based on their content. And whether you have them shows that you value their content. And I think that at least personally for me, it would devalue their content if I just kept books just because I had them or that I read them. I don't see a point in keeping a book just because I read it, because, I mean, you can read anything and you don't want to keep any and everything. If you really hated book A, but then you really love book B, why would you put the both on the same shelf? You know, what's your criteria for keeping those books? That's just my personal feeling about my book collection, and this is why I need to go through all of the books and just read them if I want to keep them or not. And I do regularly go through purges, and if, like, you know what, do I really want to keep this? Am I really going to read this again in the future? And another thing about the reading experience, and when people say that, you know, they need to be in the mood to read it, I think it's like sometimes people want to chase that ideal, optimal reading experience. Like, I need to be in the best frame of mind to enjoy and appreciate this book. But I don't think that you will always be in the most optimal frame of mind to appreciate the book. Because there are times where I realized I was totally not in the mood necessarily to read the book, but I still read it anyway, and even though I didn't completely enjoy it at that moment, I was like, you know what? I know that I will actually enjoy this in another setting, in another frame of mind. At least I know that I will enjoy that, and so I can know that I should get that book, keep it, and I know when to pull it out because I already know what it's like. I've already understand the flow of it and what's going to come, and so I can plan out and optimize my reading in the future to fit my moods better, because you can't really just anticipate if something is going to mesh with your mood until you've read it, if that makes any sense. I mean, I think it's catch-22. If you need to be in a mood to read a particular book, but you need to read the book to understand what mood it will fit with, it's just like an ever-ending cycle that you just, they're going to have all these books that you're just never in the mood to read, and then therefore you never really get to reading it. And I just think that's a shame, and so I just like to keep the books going. It seems like I'm making up for lost time, because I just realized I'm just fed up with just having all these books on my TBR list that I just never end up getting to for kind of bullshit reasons, and I'm like, I'm just gonna cut the bullshit. I'm just gonna get down to reading this book. I wanted to read these books at one point. Why am I not reading them now? So I'm just gonna read these books. I read a lot of books just to experience them, and I sometimes just push myself to read the book. I just push myself, like, I want to know what these books are like. How am I gonna find that out? I have to read them. I just have to read them. I just need to buckle down and read them. And I read, and I just read a lot, and I think it happened in February, where I just realized, you know, like, this whole waiting till you're in the mood to read a book is kind of bullshit. Just read it. Just read. Just read. It's kind of like running and exercising. I mean, the idea of it and doing it. You know it's good, you know you want to do it, you know you should do it, but you don't have the motivation to do it, you don't have the momentum to do it. But you know, once you just get out there and you're running, you have the momentum. You want to get to the end, you want to finish. And you know, once you start running, you have a taste for it, you want to keep running, and you miss it when you don't do it, and you're like, oh, I should be running, and you enjoy it. And it's like, you know, the Nike slogan, just do it. You might surprise yourself. Also, a quick disclaimer, it was one thing I was kind of worried about, and I was kind of afraid I would have this criticism that, you know, I choose quantity over quality in books. I really do hope that all the books that I choose are quality books. And some books, I might consider that they just might be something that I just want to see what it's like. They might not be the highest quality, but I just want to experience what it's about and what the hype is about. But I don't want to view each book as just like a tally. For that reason, I am not participating in a reading challenge at all this year, and I didn't participate in a battle books because I don't want to look at books as a competition. I don't want to just like read X amount of books just for the sake of reading X amount of books. I read a lot of the books, the amount of books that I do, so that I can get through and finally get to all the books that I felt that I've committed to reading, or that I want to commit to reading. And checking out library books is a big help for me, because I feel like when you check out a book, you're committing to reading that book at least within 3 weeks. Hopefully you're going to turn it in on time. And I think that's a bigger commitment than buying the book, because if you buy the book, you just buy the book. You don't necessarily have any obligation to read it. It could just be a piece of art for you. You can just put it on your shelf and say that it's a beautiful cover and it has a great concept, and you have fond thoughts thinking about the book. The idea of the book is very beautiful to you, and just the idea of the book is good enough for you. And so you bought that idea of the book, and that's totally fine. That's totally great. You bought the potential. It's your money. You can choose to do whatever you want, and you can choose to invest in any type of experience you want. But for me, I feel like when I check out a book, I'm committing to experiencing the book, because I can't own that book just by checking it out. And also, it's very good on my pocketbook, because I'm not going to buy 20 books in a month. That's expensive. That's insanely expensive. I'm not going to do that. And I'm very cheap, so yeah. I've always worried that, you know, people would think that I just read through the books and I don't even experience them, that I'm not even aware of what's going on in the book. I'm just like flipping pages. And no, I'm honestly reading the books. I'm experiencing the books. I have opinions about these books. Some of the books I just naturally just fly right through, and I actually have to stop myself from reading it just to get to the next book. I purposely have to pace myself through books. In other books, I have to pace myself in another way, where I have to, okay, you know, just get to page 100, and then you can stop reading for the day. But at least I'm getting through the book. Whether or not you read 1 book a month, or you read 100 books in a month, it doesn't matter. As long as you are satisfying something that you want to achieve, whether or not what you want to achieve is to have a complete experience of the book, to experience certain books, or whether or not is you want to, you know, have as many experiences as you want, or to finally get to books that you've been just putting off. That's my case. I mean, a lot of these books I put off for a really long time. In order to read all these books that I want to read, I have to pace myself. I have to have a pile. It's like, you're going to read this pile, because if you don't read it now, you're never going to read it. That's my thought process. So yeah, after this, I'm probably going to do a video on exactly how I read so many books. This is why I read so many books, and the next one is going to be how I read all these books. And I'll probably get into the logistics and how I plan out all of these books that I read. Yeah, that will be fun. Whether or not you might find some of those tips useful or just insightful in how I read personally, and it might just have some insights into how my life is. There are a few circumstances in my life where some things that, there are certain limitations that I don't have that other people have. So, you know, some things will be applicable, some things won't. That's how life is, that's how people are, that's how individuals are. That's life. That's pretty much all I have for this video so far. I thought people might be at least a little bit interested. I hope you have a great day, and don't have a phrase. I don't have a phrase. Yep.